Perhaps no exhibition of the kind has ever elicited so general attention as the chess player of Maelzel. Wherever seen, it has been an object of intense curiosity to all persons who think. Yet the question of its modus operandi is still undetermined. Nothing has been written on this topic which can be considered as decisive, and accordingly we find everywhere men of mechanical genius, of great general acuteness and discriminative understanding, who make no scruple in pronouncing the automaton a pure machine, unconnected with human agency in its movements, and consequently, beyond all comparison, the most astonishing of the inventions of mankind. And such it would be undoubtedly be were they right in their supposition. Assuming this hypothesis, it would be grossly absurd to compare with a chess player any similar thing of either modern or ancient days. Yet there have been many and wonderful automata. In Brewster's Letters on Natural Magic, we have an account of the most remarkable. Among these may be mentioned as having, beyond doubt, existed firstly the coach invented by M. Camus for the amusement of Louis XIV when a child. A table about 4 feet square was introduced into the room appropriated for the exhibition. Upon this table was introduced into the room appropriated for. Upon this table was placed a carriage, 6 inches in length, made of wood, and drawn by 2 horses of the same material. One window being down, a lady was seen on the back of the same material. One window being down, a lady was seen on the back seat. A coachman held the reins on the box. A footman and page were in their places behind. M. Camus now touched a spring, whereupon the coachman smacked his whip, and the horses proceeded in a natural manner along the edge of the table, drawing after them the carriage. Having gone as far as possible in this direction, a sudden turn was made to the left, and the vehicle was driven at this right angles to its former course, and still closely along the edge of the table. In this way, the coach proceeded until it arrived opposite the chair of the young prince. It then stopped, the page descended and opened the door. The lady alighted and presented a petition to her sovereign. She then re-entered. The page put up the steps, closed the door, and resumed his station. The coachman whipped his horses, and the carriage was driven back to its original position. The magician of M. Maelzel is also worthy of notice. We copy the following account of its from the letters before mentioned of Dr. B, who derived his information principally from the Edinburgh Encyclopedia. One of the most popular pieces of mechanism which we have seen is the magician constructed by M. Maelzel for the purpose of answering certain given questions. A figure dressed like a magician appears seated at the bottom of a wall, holding a wand in one hand and a book in the other. a number of questions prepared and inscribed on oval medallions, and a spectator takes any of these he chooses, and to which he wishes an answer, and having placed it in a drawer ready to receive it, the drawer shuts with a spring till the answer is returned. The magician now then arises from the seat, bows his head, describes circles with his wand, and consulting the book as if in deep thought, he lifts it toward his face, having thus appeared to ponder over the proposed question. He raises his wand, and striking it with the ball above his head, 2 folding doors fly open, and display an appropriate answer to the question. Doors then close. The magician resumes his original position, and the doors open. The drawer opens to return the medallion. There are 20 of these medallions, all containing different questions, to which the magician returns the most suitable and striking answers. The medallions are thin plates of brass of an elliptical form, exactly resembling each other. Some of the medallions have a question inscribed on each side, both of which the magician answers in succession. If the drawer is shut without a medallion being put in it, the magician rises, consults his book, shakes his head, and resumes his seat. The folding doors remain shut, and the drawers return empty. If 2 medallions are put in the drawer together, the answer is return only the lower one when the machinery is wound up. The movements continue about an hour, during which time about 50 persons may be answered. The inventor stated that by means by which the different medallions acted upon the machinery so as to produce the proper answers to the questions which they contain, which were extremely simple. The duck of Valkenson was still more remarkable. It was about the size of life and so perfect an imitation of the living animal that the spectators were deceived. It executed, says Brewster, all the natural movements and gestures. It ate and drank with avidity, performed all the quack motions of the head and throat which are peculiar to the duck. And like it, muddled the water which it drank with its bill. It produced also the sound of quacking in the most natural manner. In the anatomical structure, the artist exhibited the highest skill. Every bone in the real duck has representative in the automaton, and the wings were anatomically exact. Every cavity, apophysis, and curvature was imitated, and each bone executed in its proper movements. When corn was thrown down before it, the duck stretched out his neck and to pick it up, swallowed and digested it. But if these machines were ingenious, what shall we think of the calculating machine of Mr. Babbage? What shall we think of an engine of wood and metal, which can not only compute astronomical and navigation tables to any given extent, but to render the exactitude of its operations mathematically certain through its power of correcting its possible errors? What shall we think of a machine which can not only accomplish all this, but actually print off its elaborate results, when obtained, without the slightest intervention of the intellect of man? It will perhaps be said in reply that a machine such as we have described is altogether above comparison with the chess player of Maelzel. By no means it is altogether beneath it. That is to say, provided we assume what should never for a moment be assumed, that the chess player is a pure machine, and performs its operations without any immediate human agency. Arithmetical or algebraical calculations are, from their very nature, fixed and determinate. Certain data being given, certain results necessarily and inevitably follow. These results have dependency upon nothing and are influenced by nothing but the data originally given. And the question to be solved proceeds, or should proceed, to its final determination by a succession of unerring steps, liable to no change, and subject to no modification. This being the case, we can, without difficulty, conceive the possibility of so arranging a piece of mechanism that upon its starting it in accordance with the data of the question to be solved, it should continue its movements regularly and progressively and undeviatingly toward the required solution, since these movements, however complex, are never imagined to be otherwise than finite and determinate. But the case is widely different with a chess player. With him, there is no determinate progression. No one moves in chess necessarily follow upon any one other. From no particular disposition of the men at one period of a game can we predicate their disposition at a different period. Let us place the first move in a game of chess in juxtaposition with the data of the algebraical question, and their great difference will be immediately perceived. From the latter, from the data, the second step of the question, dependent thereupon, inevitably follows. It is modeled by the data. It must be thus and not otherwise, but from the first move in the game of chess, no special second move follows of necessity. In the algebraical question, it proceeds toward solution, the certainty of its operations remain altogether unimpaired. The second step having been a consequence of the data, the third step is equally a consequence of the second, the fourth of the third, the fifth of the fourth, and so on. And not possibly the fourth to the third. Not possibly otherwise to the end. But in proper proportion to the progress made in a game of chess is the uncertainty to each ensuing move. A few moves have been made, no step is certain. Different spectators of the game would advise different moves. All is then dependent upon the variable judgment of the players. Now even granting, which should not be granted, that the movements of the automaton chess player were in themselves determinate, they would be necessarily interrupted and disarranged by the indeterminate will of his antagonist. There is then no analogy whatever between the operations of the chess player and those of the calculating machine of Mr. Babbage. And if we choose to call the former a pure machine, we must be prepared to admit that it is, beyond all comparison, the most wonderful of the inventions of mankind. Its original projector, however, Baron Kemplin, had no scruple in declaring it to be a, quote, very ordinary piece of mechanism, a bagatelle whose effects appeared so marvelous only from the boldness of the conception, and the fortunate choice of the methods adopted for promoting the illusion, unquote. But it is needless to dwell upon this point. It is quite certain that the operations of the automaton were regulated by mind and by nothing else. Indeed, this matter is susceptible of a mathematical demonstration, a priori. The only question then is the matter of which human agency is brought to bear. Before entering upon this subject, it will be as well to give a brief history of the description of the chess player, of the benefit of our readers, as may never have had an opportunity of witnessing Mr. Maelzel's exhibition. The automaton chess player was invented in 1769 by Baron Kemplin, a nobleman of Pressburg in Hungary, who afterward disposed of it together with the secret of its operations to its present possessor. Soon after its completion, and it was exhibited in Pressburg, Paris, Vienna, and other continental cities. In 1783 and 1784, it was taken to London by Mr. Maelzel. Of late years, it has visited the principal towns of the United States. Wherever seen, the most intense curiosity were excited by its appearance, and numerous have been the attempts, by men of all classes, to fathom the mystery of its evolutions. The cut on page 387 gives a tolerable representation of the figure as seen by the citizens of Richmond a few weeks ago. The right arm, however, should lie more at length upon the box. The chessboard should appear upon it, and the cushion should not be seen while the pipe is held. Some immaterial alterations have been made in the costume of the player since it came into the possession of Maelzel. The plume, for example, was not originally worn. At the hour appointed for exhibition, a certain curtain is drawn, or folding doors are thrown open, and the machine rolled to within about 12 feet of the nearest of the spectators, between whom and it, the machine, a rope is stretched. A figure is habited as a Turk, and seated, with its legs crossed, at a large box apparently of maple wood, which serves it as a table. The exhibitor will, if requested, roll the machine into any portion of the room, suffer it to remain altogether on any designated spot, or even shift its location repeatedly during the progress of a game. The bottom of the box is elevated considerably along the floor, above the floor, by means of castors or brazen rollers on which it moves. A clear view of the surface immediately beneath the automaton being thus afforded to the spectators. The chair on which the figure sits is affixed permanently to the box. On top of this latter is a chessboard, also permanently fixed. The right arm of the chess player is extended at full length before him at right angles with his body, and lying in apparently careless position beside the side of the board. The back of the hand is upward. The board itself is 18 inches square. The left arm of the figure is bent at the elbow, and in the left hand is a pipe. A green drapery conceals the back of the Turk, and it falls partially over the front of both shoulders. To judge from the external appearance of the box, it is divided into 5 compartments, 3 cupboards of equal dimensions and 2 drawers occupying that portion of the chest lying beneath the cupboards. The foregoing observations apply to the appearance of the automaton upon its first introduction into the presence of the spectators. Maelzel now informs the company he will disclose to their view the mechanism of the machine. Taking from his pocket a bunch of keys, he unlocks with one of them a door marked 1 in the cut on page 387 and throws the cupboard fully open into the inspection of all present. Its whole interior is apparently filled with wheels, pinions, levers, and other machinery, crowded very closely together so that the eye can penetrate but little distance into the mass. Leaving this door open to its full extent, he now goes around to the back of the box and, raising the drapery of the figure, opens another door situated precisely in the rear of the one first opened. Holding a lighted candle at this door and shifting the position of the whole machine around repeatedly at the same time, a bright light is thrown entirely through the cupboard, which is now clearly seen to be completely full of machinery. The spectators being satisfied of this fact, Maelzel closes the back door, locks it, and takes the key from the lock, lets fall the drapery of the figure, and come around the front. The door marked 1, it will be remembered, is still open. The exhibitor now proceeds to open the drawer, which lies beneath the cupboards at the bottom of the box. For although there are apparently 2 drawers, there's really only one. The 2 handles and its 2 keyholes being intended merely for ornament. Having opened this drawer to its full extent, a small cushion and a set of chessmen fixed in a framework made to support them perpendicularly are discovered. Leaving this drawer, as well as cupboard number 1 open, Maelzel now opens door number 2 and door number 3, which are discovered to be folding doors, opening into one and the same compartment. To the right of this compartment, however, that is to say the same compartment, the spectator's right, a small division, 6 inches wide, is filled with the machinery, is partitioned off. The main compartment itself, and speaking of that portion of the box visitable upon opening doors 2 and 3, we shall always call it in the main compartment, is lined with dark cloth, and contains no machinery whatever beyond 2 pieces of steel, quadrant-shaped and situated, one in each of the rear top corners of the compartment. A small protuberance about 8 inches square, and also covered with dark cloth, lies on the floor of the compartment near the rear corner of the spectator's left hand. Leaving doors number 2 and 3 open, as well as the door number 1, the exhibitor now goes around to the back of the main compartment, and unlocking another door there displays clearly all the interior of the main compartment. By introducing a candle beyond it and within it, the whole box being thus apparently disclosed to the scrutiny of the company, Maelzel, still leaving the doors and drawers open, rolls the automaton entirely around, and exposes the back of the Turk by lifting up the drapery. A door about 10 inches square is thrown open in the loins of the figure, and a smaller one also in the left thigh. The interior of the figure is also, as well As seen through these apertures, it appears to be crowded with machinery. In general, through these apertures, every spectator is now thoroughly satisfied of having beheld and completely scrutinized, at one and the same time, every individual portion of the automaton, and the idea of any person being concealed in the interior. During so complete an exhibition of that interior, if ever entertained, is immediately dismissed as preposterous in the extreme. And Maelzel, having rolled the automaton, the machine back into its original position, now informs the company that the automaton will play a game of chess with anyone disposed to encounter him. This challenge being accepted, a small table is prepared for the antagonist, enclosed by the rope, but on the spectator's side of it, and so situated as not to prevent the company from obtaining a full view of the automaton. From a drawer in this table is taken a set of chessmen, and Maelzel arranges them generally, but not always, with his own hands on the chessboard, which consists merely of having the usual number of squares painted upon the table. The antagonist having taken his seat, the exhibitor approaches the drawer of the box and takes therefrom the cushion, which, after removing the pipe from the hand of the automaton, he places under his left arm as a support. Then, taking also from the dresser drawer from the automaton's set of chessmen, he arranges them upon the chessboard before the figure. He now proceeds to close the doors and to lock them. Leaving the bunch of keys in door number 1, he also closes the drawer and finally winds up the machine by applying a key to an aperture in the left hand, the spectator's left of the box. The game now commences, the automaton taking the first move. The duration of this contest is usually limited to half an hour, but if it be not finished at the expiration of this period, and the antagonist still contends that he can beat the automaton, and Maelzel has seldom any objection to continue it. Not to weary the company is to the ostensible and no doubt real object of the limitation. It will of course be understood that when a move is made at his own table by the antagonist, the corresponding move is made with the box of the automaton by Maelzel himself, who then acts as the representative of the antagonist. On the other hand, when the Turk moves, the corresponding move is made at the table of the antagonist, also by Maelzel, who then acts as the representative of the automaton. In this manner, it is necessary that the exhibitor should often pass to one table to the other. He also frequently goes in the rear of the figure to remove the chessmen, which it has taken, in which it deposits, when taken, on the box to the left, to its own left of the board. When the automaton hesitates in relation to its move, the exhibitor is occasioned to place himself very near its right side, also to lay its hand now and then in a careless manner upon the box. He has also a peculiar shuffle with his feet, calculated to induce suspicion of collusion with the machine in minds which are more cunning than sagacious. These peculiarities are, no doubt, mere mannerisms of Maelzel, or if he is aware of them at all, he puts them in practice with a view of exciting in the spectators a false idea of the pure mechanism of the automaton.